From the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News at 6.
North Central Florida saw the heat index stay above 100 for most of the day, and now showers and thunderstorms are forming. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ashlyn Reese.
And I'm Deanne Lasnever. UF meteorologist Sean Bellafiore has been tracking the heat and the storms. Sean, where are the storms now?
Folks, we have a line of storms making its way down from Gainesville down through Ocala, right down the I-75 corridor. A strong cell just moved through Ocala, and there's a cell moving through the city of Gainesville right now. Lightning associated with this, some strong gusty winds as well. The cell is just to the south of downtown Gainesville, but it's going to be moving over Hale Plantation, Paynes Prairie. We also have another cell moving towards the airport as well. Times of arrival for these storms over the next hour to an hour and a half. Well, as these storms move on over towards the west, going to be affecting Millhopper 603, Oaks Mall 606, 615 for Hale Plantation, 616 for Santa Fe, and then 620 for Alachua. I'm going to be watching one area in particular for some new development. These heat index numbers that we've seen and all the heat that we saw today, I'm looking for new development out by Newberry, Tioga, and Hale Plantation, and I'll have more on weekend storms plus the heat in my main weather forecast.
Thank you, Sean. The Florida Wildlife Commission is urging awareness and caution about bears foraging close to homes during coming months. An attack in the spring forced wildlife officers to kill several bears that no longer avoided humans.
That case in Lake Mary also led to the prosecution of 3 people accused of deliberately feeding black bears. As Christy Andrews reports, sightings and contacts could surge this fall while the bears feed heavily before winter.
When we saw him, he had already tore this screen here.
A lanai screen damaged, scratched, and broken in. Ryan Saylor says it's the work of an unlikely intruder.
The strength of that bear had actually pulled the aluminum away from the concrete there.
Ryan was watching TV with his wife inside. They heard a loud crash, then this.
To our surprise, there was a bear's head sticking through our lanai right there.
It's one of many spawnings at Bella Terra in Estero. Neighbors took these pictures of a bear in the driveway, the yard, and the woods. Ryan didn't catch his bear visitor on camera, but suspects it's the same one.
It might have been 400 pounds. His shoulders were as high as the bottom rung on the lanai screening there.
Neighbors say the bear ran off back into these woods, and so far, they haven't seen it since.
They seem to be acclimating awfully well to Bella Terra.
It's not just here. FWC officers say bears are showing up nearby, including at the Stony Brook community just down the road.
Once a month, you'll get something in the Stony Brook. They'll send out an email saying, hey, there was a black bear spotted, don't feed them.
According to FWC, bears eat up to 20,000 calories more per day from August to November. Extra meals they find in your trash can, on your porch, or even your lanai. Ryan Saylor thinks this bear was only looking for shade, but he knows a hungry bear is not a friendly visitor.
I do check the area out at night before I take the dogs with me, just to make sure they're not out there.
It's illegal to feed bears, and you should also make sure garbage and pet food is stored securely so that wild animals won't be attracted. If you spot a bear coming too close to a neighborhood or causing property damage, call the Florida Wildlife Commission.
It's not bears, but thousands of insects causing a nightmare for a Winter Haven woman. A chair in her backyard has been overtaken, converted into a gigantic nest of wasps. Reporter Holly Bounds shows you this extreme case.
Sure, they made a recliner their home.
Oh, one just hit me.
But they're no lazy boys.
Every time I think about it, now I get chills. So I'm getting chills now thinking about it.
In a recent check of his mother's backyard, Tony Smart walked up on wasps, and lots of them.
I'm like, oh my gosh, man, my heart like almost jumped out of my chest.
It's a nest that stretches from one end of the chair to the other.
This is off the charts.
And it has the exterminators pulling out all the stops.
It's going to be probably several people out here taking care of it at one time. We'll have 2 trucks, probably 2 or 3 technicians.
What's worse, it spreads farther than we can see.
There's a crawl hole right behind the chair, and then it goes up underneath the structure as well.
Tony says his mom's always had a problem about collecting things and not wanting to get rid of it, but finally, there's something she doesn't mind parting with.
I think she'd be the first one to get rid of them, because I know she wouldn't be sitting, I wouldn't either.
Jokes aside, Tony knows this is dangerous, and so does Florida Pest Control, which is one reason they're going to knock this pricey job out at no cost.
I would hate to see a child chase a football and jump on it, because that would be that could be life-threatening.
The CDC warns that bees, wasps, and hornets are most abundant in the warmest months and may be attracted to food and perfumes. People who are severely allergic to stings are urged to take extra precautions and carry EpiPens for first aid.
The Levy County Sheriff's Office is asking for help to locate a missing Yankeetown resident. James Bailey was last seen at his son's home early this morning. He's thought to have walked off. He walks with a noticeable limp and is thought to be without his medicines, which is a concern because of his history of seizures. Anyone with information on Bailey's whereabouts should contact the Levy County Sheriff's Office. The Orange County Fire Department says a can of pepper spray discharged on a school bus with children on board this morning. 45 children were on the bus headed to Riverdale Elementary. Fire officials say the canister belonged to a student, and the school is investigating whether it went off accidentally or intentionally. All of the children were assessed by paramedics and sent to school on a different bus. Paramedics were on standby at the school to monitor any possible side effects.
Commute times around Gainesville are about to get longer. Public schools restarted this week, and Santa Fe and UF will join in next week. This morning, the University of Florida held a convocation for new students. Author Will Allen delivered the keynote address. Allen's book, The Good Food Revolution, was required summer reading for incoming UF freshmen. This election year, Rick Scott is doubling down on funding for schools. In an unusual move, months ahead of the next legislative session, Governor Scott announced yesterday he'll seek another boost for education. Scott and lawmakers slashed $1.3 billion from education spending after Scott took office, but recent budget restored much of that. Scott is now backing a $700 million increase next year, which would top the record level per student reached when Charlie Crist was governor. Crist, now running for governor as a Democrat, says Scott should have done more already given this year's budget surplus.
Tonight, we have word of two new retirees in Alachua County, Raider and Goldie. They're horses and lucky enough to get to live out their days at Mill Creek Farm in Alachua. As WUFT's Colette Duchanis explains, that will be a labor of love for a man who gave up the South Florida life to carry on a family tradition.
Paul Gregory wakes up at 5:30 a.m. every day. And every minute of the day, Paul spends caring for horses that were abused, neglected, and overworked.
It really is all about these horses and these animals, and it's the most gratifying thing I've ever done in my life.
But only until recently has Paul's time been consumed with horses. His days were previously spent working as a realtor in South Florida.
I got a call from my mom saying my father had passed away. So I grabbed 3 pairs of shorts and 2 shirts and drove up here with my dog. And that was 4 months ago. Haven't been home since. And I'm loving every minute of it. I went from living right in the middle of the city of Fort Lauderdale to out here on this beautiful farm.
Paul's parents, Peter and Mary Gregory, created the retirement home for horses at Mill Creek Farm in 1984. The farm is a nonprofit equine sanctuary that provides a safe and peaceful home for old and abandoned horses for a lifetime. When a horse comes to Mill Creek Farm, it is given a forever home. So when a horse dies, it is buried on the property in the Field of Dreams, a memorial park for the animals and Paul's father. After Peter died in March, his ashes were scattered in the Field of Dreams.
31 years he dedicated his life and hardly ever left the property. He wanted to stay with his animals.
And now Paul is taking over his father's job to ensure forever still means forever.
2 things I promised my dad before he passed away. 1 is I would take care of my mom, and 2 is I'd make sure that his dream continued on.
Paul, well, he's very much like his dad in a lot of ways, but what Paul has done, he completely changed his entire life to come up here to be with his mom and take over the farm.
When you think of a horse farm, you probably think of people riding around on horses. But at Mill Creek Farm, The volunteers and workers drive around on golf carts because when the horses come to Mill Creek Farm, they're promised that they'll never have to be ridden or worked ever again.
Paul's daily chores that start before sunrise and end after dusk are no small task. There are 130 horses that live on the farm's 335 acres, and many of them are 30 to 40 years old.
We consider horses in their mid-20s to 30s living a really great lifespan.
The horses come to retire after being seized by law enforcement agencies, rescued by humane societies, and retired from government service.
We have horses that were rescued from the Everglades that were tied to trees where the owners were hoping that alligators would eat and dispose of their carcasses.
Every horse receives veterinary care, special feeding, weekly grooming, and large quantities of carrots and love. The horses that come from hard lives require a large amount of attention, but Paul's happy to give them his time.
You never know what's going to happen from one minute to the next, and it's a place like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's where you can change an animal's life, but an animal can change yours. And people's lives are changed here. My life's been changed forever.
So even as the day comes to an end, Paul Gregory is already preparing to spend every minute of the next day and the day after taking care of the retired horses at Mill Creek Farm. Colette Duchanis, WUFT News.
Mill Creek Farm is open to the public every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The price of admission is not money. You just need to bring at least 2 carrots. But if you want to donate cash for the cause or sponsor a horse, you can learn more at the website millcreekfarm.org. And we also have a breaking weather alert. We'll send you to Sean Bellafieri in the Weather Center. What's going on, Sean?
Folks, brand new severe thunderstorm warning for Alachua County. This is until 6:45. The storm is currently centered over Gainesville. If we can jump into my radar, I'll show you exact timings on the location of this storm. Storm going at southwest at 10 miles an hour, moving winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. Storm is located near Gainesville. Here's the times of arrival: 6:21 for Tioga, 6:29 for Los Trancos Woods, 6:34 Jonesville. I'll have an update on this storm as well as more news coming up after the break.